All right. Well, I just made the previous tape, which had to do with a novel argument. So now I'm going to talk about my background a little bit because, in case you're a lawyer, you might wonder where I'm coming from. Um, so here's, by the way, although I have cancer, I'm doing quite well. It's contained. I just didn't sleep last night. Why didn't I sleep last night? Because I was thinking about like getting rid of this law, Fort Collins City Ordinance 17181. So, how can I do that? So I don't have MS Word doc. So if I were to file suit myself, I couldn't comply to the formal requirements for briefs in any court of law other than municipal court here in Fort Collins, which allows emails. But here's my background in brief. I was born in 1962. Um, when I was in the second grade, it was discovered that I have gifts, that I'm gifted, very highly gifted. I stopped doing homework then for the rest until I went to college. Um, let's see. I did graduate work in math, graduate work in physics, taught physics at the University of Washington Instructional Center for 20 years. Washington State Junior Chess Champion. I'm a Scrabble expert. I tend to dabble in games. I dabbled in that game and became an expert very quickly. I played my first tournament was Division 3. They wanted to put me in Division 5. I wanted to be in Division 2. They wouldn't allow it. I won first place, $500. Second tournament, I did very well. In the third tournament, I was a Division 1 player. So in that tournament, I played the reigning U.S. champion and current number world 2 named Dave Weekend, and I went 2-0 against him. That required some luck, certainly. And eventually, I decided that I didn't want to memorize the dictionary, and that that Scrabble is not very rich an intellectual endeavor. It's not very strategically complex. It's not something worthy of pursuit anymore. I did my stint and I got out, and I haven't played in a Scrabble tournament in 10 or 15 years. But I'm still an expert. They consider an expert, which is the chess equivalent of a master. Or they have it's Division 1. My rating's like 16, 14. Um, let's see. I played in some backgammon tournaments when I was a college student. I also played backgammon for money at the Last Exit in Seattle and other places. I read every book out there on backgammon, and I studied backgammon on my own. I got to be one of the best backgammon players in the state of Washington. Um, I won some tournaments, locally speaking, and then I quit in 1993 because I didn't want to participate in a feeding frenzy that was going on where a millionaire was losing all of his money because he became addicted to cocaine and backgammon. And he was just losing all of his money by gambling against backgammon players, and I didn't want to be a part of that. I think of it as a struggle between people who wish to gamble, and it's a very rich intellectual pursuit. And I just quit. But around the year 1997, the neural net bots came out, which I heard about. And I contracted cancer in around 2006 or 7, and I was going through chemotherapy. I eventually ended up having major surgery with a full bowel resection. During that period of time, I downloaded GNU, which is a neural net backgammon program, which supposedly is better than any human being on the planet. It seems reasonable that's still the case. Although now I don't use it, I use Extreme Gammon, which is undoubtedly the best backgammon player on the planet. And Extreme Gammon is a neural net backgammon program. It costs about $100. I use it now, but my story is that how I got into backgammon again was I started playing in Fort Collins. I moved to Fort Collins in 2014 after having hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, not the entire trail, but about 1,000 miles. I repeated the endeavor in 2015. I was having problems with plantar fasciitis. This is before I got cancer again. I got cancer in 2017 again, but so when I moved to Fort Collins, there was some people playing backgammon. There was a backgammon club, and I played. And then I went to Seattle and visited my friends in Seattle. That's where I hail from. And when I was coming back from Seattle, Edward Oni and David Clausa told me that a major backgammon tournament was going to be held in Fort Collins by the time I got there. So I just drove straight from Seattle and I played in this tournament. And I had the option of, now when I registered, they didn't have my name as being anything. There weren't organized like nationwide backgammon tournaments in the 70s, or rather the 80s and early 90s when I was playing in Seattle. So I was a complete unknown. And most people who talked to me thought that I was probably an intermediate player and I should be in the intermediate division, considering that I had won some tournaments in Seattle in the late 80s and early 90s. But according to GNU, I was world class, and I had been world class for a while. And I felt that it was likely that I was the best player who would be playing in this tournament, mainly because I hadn't kept abreast of who the best players in the world are. It turns out that many of the best players in the world actually were at this tournament and were playing in Division One. It's kind of like the professional bowling tour, Division One in backgammon in the AB American Backgammon Society's tournament. Now, this is one of them. So it was a major tournament. And what I did is being interested in something usually entails being interested in the theory and creating theory of my own. And I had created a theory of how people should play, how people should take or pass cubes based on players of being different strengths. So I won I entered Division One and I won the tournament. Had a perfect score. I went 5-0. The matches were 13-point matches, I think, which is really nice. Then I went to Vegas. I did really well. And then I was number one in the world by ELO, which is a rating system, in backgammon. And I got a lot of attention. Like Mochi, who is considered to be the number one player in the world, was taking video of me playing in a chouette in Vegas and evaluating my play, which I thought was kind of funny. And I went on and I played in a bunch of minor tournaments. I drove to California and I won one of them. And I played in some chouettes in San Francisco and I won, I don't know, let's see, about $500 the first week. It was $10 chouette. So, but there wasn't as much action as I thought. So I just went back to Fort Collins. So basically, the amount of money that I won in tournaments and in chouettes in California paid for my hotel and my gas money going there and back. And when I got back to Fort Collins, I contracted cancer again eventually, and I became homeless. Um, and I've been homeless for 3 years, and then I got housing. I've been housed for a year and a half. So that's my story. That's basically the relevant points of my CV, I suppose. Uh, I'm really far off on the right of the bell curve when it comes to like IQ tests and stuff like that. But so I'm a little bit unusual. So I feel that I'm up to any topic just by studying it. Such has been the case since I was in the second grade. When I became at the sixth grade level and everything, within 3 months, 3.5 months, which is another story, but I earlier alluded to the fact that something unusual happened to me in the second grade. And that's that I got the opportunity to learn out of workbooks at my own rate. And within 3.5 months of onset of this process, I'd run out of workbooks and I was at the sixth grade level and everything. And that taught me to learn how to learn on my own. And I've been doing that ever since. And so when it comes to aspects of the law, I'm not a lawyer, but I certainly can read. I can read case law. I can think. I can, you know, follow legal arguments. I can disagree with Scottish analytic techniques, as in Robinson v. California. I disagree with their techniques, with the exception of Justice White, who nearly got it right. And basically, I mean, if you want to know something about that, okay, here's the rough shot on it, a rough approximation. In the law, there are acts of commission and there are acts of omission, and each is legitimate as the other. You can have a law which prohibits an act or conduct, and the opposite, so which requires one to not commit an act. Um, and the case Robinson was analyzed, that's the case Robinson v. California, 1962, by the Supreme Court. And the law was the relevant part of the law that was put to question is the California state law part, which said it shall be illegal to be addicted to the use of narcotics. And rather than start from first principle and just argue to figure out whether there's a difference between an act and a state of being, the analysis was done in terms of what is called a status or a condition. Status is a socially recognized state of being. Um, you know, this since then, there's been some allusion by legal experts to the supposed fact that the laws which prohibit states of being are rare, and laws which prohibit status, are even rarer. And that's just not the case. If you look at laws throughout the United States, you'll find that, yeah, sure, laws which prohibit states of being are rare, but they're not. I would say the ratio is like 100 to 1 in terms of laws which prohibit acts versus laws which prohibit states of being. Example of a law which prohibits an act would be it is illegal to stand on the median. An example of a law which prohibits a state of being is it's illegal to be on the median. An example of a law which prohibits an act would be it's illegal to enter and remain a natural area during the hours of 11 a.m., p.m., and 5 a.m. An example of a law which prohibits a state of being would be the same equivalent law where it's illegal to be in a natural area during the same period of time. Gresham, Oregon has such a law where it's illegal to be in a natural area. That's a state of being, a law which prohibits a state of being. Broken Arrow, Oklahoma has laws which prohibit states of being. It seems to be a matter of taste the legislative taste as to um, how you write the law. Now, this is something that is true. There's for every law which prohibits an act or a set of acts, there's an equivalent law which prohibits a change of state of being or a set of changes of states of being, and vice versa. Vice versa. Excuse me. There is a complete duality between laws which prohibits acts and laws which prohibit states of being. They are dual to each other. There's a dual space. There's there's two laws which are informationally equivalent, can be expressed in either way and have exactly the same repercussions. So, in order to prove this, it's not too hard to do. This comes from my physics background, really, this form of analysis. What is a state of being? Well, it's a snapshot of a person in time, right? Anytime that one takes two snapshots at two different periods of time, and there's a difference relevant to the verbiage of the law, something has happened, an act has occurred. Okay. Any law which prohibits an act, let's say it shall be illegal to do X, has an equivalent expression as a law which makes it illegal to change the state of being. What? How is this? Well, it makes it illegal to be. Now, behavior comes from the word be have. So it makes it illegal to be having been in the state, in some state, to be having been in another state where the act has been committed. So if one has never committed the act, it's a law which prohibits a person from B having not done the act to B having done the act. Or if the person has done the act n times, it's a law which prohibits someone from B having done the act n times to B having done the act n plus 1 times. Or it's a law which provides the existence of a period of time in which one changes one's state of being from B having not done the act at time t to B having done the act at time t plus delta t, where the act was done in this period of time delta t. There are multiple ways of expressing this, but give me any law which prohibits an act, I can write an equivalent law which prohibits a change of state of being, and vice versa. So let's say it's illegal to be in the state of being X. Well, that's equivalent to having a law which compels one to change one's state of being from X to non-X state. So it requires one to perform an act. So it requires one to commit an act of omission, right? So it prohibits one from committing the act of omission from B having been in the state X to still having been in the state X. It's kind of a spot removal law. One must change one's state of being. So the equivalency, and I may not have explained this very well, but there's an exact duality here in terms of information theory, and that's what's important. Is the information conveyed from mind to mind through the interpretive process called meaning. And that's what laws do. They communicate information from mind to mind or from the internet to mind. So, there's an equivalency there. And this has bearing on Robinson v. California type of analysis. Justice White certainly saw the kind of twistings and stuff that the main point of Robinson was that it's it's cruel and unusual punishment to penalize someone for being in a state in which one has no power to control or change. That it's a law which persists through time. There are two kinds of laws. There's laws which are the logical conditions are immediately extinguished at time t, and there's laws which persist for a period of time, which I call interval laws. So, example of a law which persists, well, let's talk about which is extinguished. It would be like murder. As soon as law prohibiting murder, as soon as you shoot somebody and they die, the moment they die, you have violated the law. Example of a law which persists would be something like speeding. If you go, if it's illegal to go, if the speed limit is 65 and you're going 70, it takes time. You'll be in an outlaw state for a period of time in which you slow down to 65. Also, trespassing. Once you've actually crossed that line and you're in the interior of the trespass area, it takes you time to get out. And so you're in an illegal state for an interval period of time. Another example would be jaywalking. If the light turns red in the middle of the road, you're going to be in violation until you cross the road. Now, the general practice is that for interval laws, they penalize you only once for having done the act, for being in the middle of the road. They don't penalize. They could give Bill Gates an indefinite number of tickets for jaywalking. Say it's $100 for jaywalking. If he's caught in the middle of the road, a cop could give him, I don't know, 1 million jaywalking tickets. And so, because they could give him one for every millimeter that the person was in the intersection when the light was red. So, anyway, there are very few examples of cities going awry and with interval laws, but there is a Scottish example of trespassing law. The states from around 1920. I can't remember the name of the case, but it was a cruel and unusual punishment case where a person was given, and this would be proportionality, was given a 5-year sentence for trespassing onto private property for a period of time of 1 hour and 45 minutes, where the maximum penalty for this law was 30 days in jail. And the way the city did this, the prosecutor, was he gave him a bunch of tickets, a bunch of trespassing tickets. Hello?
Hey, buddy. I want to disturb you. Are you visiting with someone?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to thank you. I haven't heard a chirping noise.
Oh, yeah, they had to change the whole unit.
The whole unit?
Yeah, they couldn't get it to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured it might be that as much as when the store gave me the batteries. But Molly is very, very active about this.
Okay.
And I knew it was a matter of time, so no, there was no inconvenience.
We couldn't have done it ourselves. They
Oh,
had to
no,
yank
no,
the whole
no.
thing out. They put a new one in.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure. No, but Molly and I are both very pleased, and please, before you consider that you owe us $10, please consider that you only owe us $5 from now on.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to fill your car up with $5 or $10 worth of gas.
I know, but we are just very grateful,
Okay.
and I'm so grateful, and like Molly feels happy.
Okay, I'm sorry I couldn't do anything about it. It's just nobody.
Oh, no. Don't worry about it. Like, I know, it's like, it becomes backroom noise after a while. I understand, totally. I lived in apartment complexes before it happens all the time. Like, it just becomes background noise, and everybody just about, like, doesn't notice it. Yeah. I only notice it because I have a routine dog, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, no, of course, I didn't, Molly would have noticed it, the wrenching dog, before you did. So, no, I'm not bothered by that at all. But I just thank you profusely for, And please consider that you do not owe us $10, but only $5
Okay.
because of our gratefulness.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank
Dave.
you. Yeah. Have a good day. You're Bob, right?
Yeah, and I appreciate how kind of a neighbor you are.
Okay. Yeah. You
Bump
too.
fist.
Okay.
Right on.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a good
Holly
day.
appreciates it so much, and that's what it means.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Boy. So, anyway, yeah, this dude was screwed over. He got 5 years when the maximum penalty was 30 days for trespassing because they gave him a bunch of tickets for one incident because it was an interval type of incident. In the Robinson kind of law, where it makes it illegal to be addicted to the use of narcotics, is an interval law. It doesn't give one fair notice when one first, if one first learns about the law by being ticketed, because one had not had the opportunity to remove oneself from being in the state of being an addict to being a non-addict. That's just pure logic. I'm just not talking about the difficulty involved in such an undertaking and the amount of time that it would take, and whether or not it's even possible for some people to do. Okay, so that's my background. Have a good day. Okay, bye. So let's see.